And finally, there is a bittersweet day for us, a bittersweet moment for the communications and press teams and all of us here at the White House. I've gotten to know Kate Bedingfield as a colleague and a friend, being in the trenches together and representing the president's agenda together. I've actually known Kate since 2007. That's a whole nother story. But Kate has been fighting this fight on behalf of the president since long before the campaign was launched, going back to when she was his communications director as vice president. She's been a trusted source of strategic advice and an unflinching voice for the president's message and values, playing an integral role in our successes these first 2 years and on the campaign. She's also a pillar of this team, which she helped build as the deputy campaign manager across the primary and general elections. I understand that after a certain previous occupant of this White House, whose name will be nameless, but as you know who this person is, he got angry and yelled and said, quote, "Biden has a team of killers. All I've got is a defense." Okay, that was in the campaign. That was the campaign communications team started calling Kate and the captain of the team killers. That doesn't surprise me at all, because if there's one thing Kate is, she is a leader. We're very sad to see her go, but no one has earned some time with their children, spouse, and dog more than Kate. And I look forward to welcoming Ben LaBolt. As you all know, he has been announced to replace Kate as communications director back to the White House. Ben has had a top role, communications role, on the last 3 successful Supreme Court nominations by Democratic presidents. We all got to work with him closely when he was the head of communications for the confirmation of now Justice Jackson, and we're glad that he is coming back to be a more permanent part of the team. I've known Ben for many years, including both Obama-Biden campaigns and the Obama-Biden White House, where he worked on climate change and civil rights. I was happy to reconnect with him when he took over communications for nominations during the transition, helping advance the case for the most diverse cabinet in history and for a host of groundbreaking sub-cabinet positions as well. He brings a cutting-edge understanding of modern communications to the table, and I know he'll fight hard for the president's agenda in the upcoming months and years. I also know that Ben is making history. As you know, we believe here in the Biden-Harris White House that representation matters. He will be the first openly gay communications director, which is very, very important indeed. Okay, with that. Zeke.
Could you just, the latest on the president's trip to Poland didn't say where he would be going in Poland. Can you let us know cities?
We will have more to share as we get closer to the day. We just wanted to make sure that you all had the information that he will be traveling during the dates that I laid out, the February 20th to the 22nd, and we'll certainly have more to share.
Briefly, a different topic. Last night, was reporting the former vice president was subpoenaed by the special counsel Jack Smith as a result of some of the investigations of the previous administration. That obviously raises a bunch of privilege concerns. Would the president waive executive privilege for the former vice president's testimony before a grand jury, or it takes out?
I'm just not going to, as you can imagine, not going to speak to this. I'm just going to refer you to the Department of Justice. Okay. Oh, nobody has a question. I can leave right now.
Karine, thank you. New Inspector General report accuses the architect of the Capitol, Brett Blanton, of a bunch of things: widespread misuse of taxpayer-funded government vehicles, misleading information to investigators, impersonating law enforcement. That's in addition to making the decision not to go to the Capitol on January 6, 2021, which outraged Democrats and Republicans. And the president is the only person who has the authority to fire him. Is that something he's considering?
So obviously we're taking this very seriously, and we're seeing the reports as well, as you know, and we take any advice that the members of Congress or any action that they want to take very seriously as well. I just don't have anything for you at this time to speak to on that particular matter. Okay, Justin.
The House passed on a bipartisan basis overturning DC's new criminal code and also a law that would allow non-citizens to vote. Is that something that the president would sign into law, or would he veto it?
So I would have to go back to the team and just get an answer for you on that. I don't know that particular piece of legislation. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. So once I get back to the team, we'll have an answer for you. Okay, Steve.
Hey, Karine, while this briefing's been underway, the National Archives has released some of the communications between the president's personal attorneys and the agency. One of them, dated on November 8th, has communication between Gary Stern, who was the general counsel of NARA, and Bob Bauer, the president's attorney, in which it references boxes in a Boston office. It says, Pat, this is to Pat Moore, who's the president's personal lawyer. Pat, we would like to pick up the boxes that are in your Boston office and move them to the JFK library. Any explanation as to what boxes we're doing in a Boston office and how this relates to
Well, as you just mentioned, it just broke, or the report just came out while we were in the middle of a briefing, so I can't speak to it from here because I just don't know what you're speaking to. But I would refer you to the White House counsel's office to get more specifics or get you an answer there.
Is it new to you, the idea that the
I
boxes would be...
I am learning about this as you were asking the question, so I'm certainly not going to speak to it from here. Go ahead, Andrea.
On the president's meeting today with the governors, he said during this meeting that Republicans are trying to close off the possibility of cutting defense spending, and that leaves only a very few options. What is the president's view on how to get to the $2 trillion in cuts that he has outlined in the State of the Union address? What is the best way to get there, and does he rule out the possibility of cutting, for instance, defense spending?
So first and foremost, so folks know, March 9th, the president's going to be putting out his budget. We have asked the House in Congress, the Republican House, to put out their budget as well, a more robust, right, a budget, so we know exactly what it is that they are putting forth, the cuts that they want to put forth, and so that we can see, not just us, but the American people can see. As you just mentioned, the president said in his State of the Union address that he was going to cut the deficit by $2 trillion over a decade. I'm not going to get ahead of what the president's going to actually, the details or the specifics in his budget. Certainly once we put that out on March 9th, you'll be able to peruse and see exactly what the president is laying out. I'm just not going to get ahead of that. But I also want to add, and I've said this many times before, you've heard the president say this as well, this is a president, the first 2 years, he was able to cut the deficit by $1.7 trillion. He takes his fiscal responsibility very seriously. And he is going to continue to find ways to build an economy that doesn't leave anybody behind, but also is fiscally responsible, as I just mentioned. Go ahead.
He also said that he did not believe that Republicans would ultimately make good their threat on to hold the debt ceiling extension or expansion hostage. What leads him to believe that? I mean, has he had subsequent conversations with other Republicans since his meeting with McCarthy, and when will he meet again with McCarthy?
So I don't have any conversations or meetings to preview for you at this time. As you know, the meeting that he had with Speaker McCarthy not too long ago was respectful. It was productive. You saw us put a readout, and you heard from the Speaker himself when he was out at the Sticks after the meeting. Look, it's pretty simple and it's pretty straightforward. We believe that Congress has a constitutional duty to get this done, to lift the debt ceiling. We've been saying that, and they should do it without conditions. That hasn't changed. They did it 3 times with the last president. You've heard me say the number 78 many times in this briefing room. That's how many times that they have been able to get this done since 1960. That doesn't change. It should be done in a bipartisan way, and the president, it will continue to call for that. And that's what they've done it before, and that's what he believes they should be doing it again.
He just sounded more optimistic today, and I'm wondering why.
This is a president who's always optimistic. This is a president who believes in optimism. As you know, he says it many times when he speaks in front of the American people, and so that is not surprising. You've heard me say that about him in describing even his speech for the State of the Union, that you would hear some optimism. So, of course, he's going to be optimistic about it. Go ahead.
Particularly given Lula's visit here this afternoon, is there any kind of update on the possibility of expelling Bolsonaro from the U.S.? Does the president personally believe that he should be allowed to remain here?
As I've said before, we had not received any type of request in that vein. I'm not going to get ahead of a meeting that's going to happen very, very shortly. You guys are all have to leave to for the pool spray that's going to happen in the Oval Office, so I'm not going to get ahead. President Lula is going to go to the Sticks right after the bilat, I believe, and take many questions from many of you. So I'm certainly not going to get ahead of what's going to come up in that meeting or what the agenda might be. I think the Admiral did a good job laying out our expectations, but I will let President Lula speak to that.
His meeting with the governors today, do you know whether and how much the issue of COVID and the expiration of the public health emergency order, how much that came up, whether the governors feel confident that the states are ready for that to happen?
So I can't speak to that. I haven't downloaded with what came up in that meeting, but what I can say is the president very much looked forward to talking to the governors. He's going to continue the conversation and continue to see them between today and tomorrow. And they've been great partners with us with all of the different historical pieces of legislation that we have been able to get done, and also that they're seeing the effects of in their own state. Okay, I'll see you guys on Monday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.